The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Hello, I'm Gail Devins, and welcome to Discover Easton. You are going to find this episode very, very interesting. We are going to learn a lot. Okay, so we are here at Optocize Vision Therapy, and I am here with Dr. Sarah Williams.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to learn about this. I know you're going to do some demonstrations.
Yes, I'm going to show you a lot of things that you've probably never seen before.
Yeah, that's great. No pun intended.
No pun intended. Yep.
I have a vision about that.
Yes.
Anyway, so this is going to be exciting, and so tell me exactly where you're located.
Yes.
So tell them when.
So I am part of Optocize Vision Therapy. We just opened. We're specifically a vision therapy practice. So we don't do routine eye exams, but I rent office space inside of Bay Eye Center. So you'll see the office. We're inside Bay Eye Center in the Roach Brothers Plaza in Easton, and then we also actually work out of their Mansfield office as well.
Oh,
I just rent an exam room and a space to do vision therapy for now, but we are a separate company from Bay Eye Center.
Oh, good to know. Thank you. And so tell me, I'm very curious, what got you into this particular?
Good question. Yes.
You know,
So I'm an optometrist. I went to optometry school in Boston, and then I did a pediatric residency. So I did a year working, basically seeing all pediatrics. I worked with pediatric ophthalmology at Tufts. I worked with pediatric optometrists all throughout Massachusetts at health centers. I worked at Perkins School for the Blind. I did a lot of different training in anything pediatric related, which also really involves binocular vision. So anytime we're looking at kids, we're looking at what's their depth perception like. Can both eyes get to 20/20? It's not, we look a little bit more with the two eyes together, their depth perception, things like that. And as I did that residency, I started seeing a lot of eye turns, a lot of eye teaming, and I kind of dabbled in the vision therapy side. And I ended up being hired at the New England College of Optometry full-time as a faculty member, and I was in charge of their strabismus and amblyopia course and working in their vision therapy clinic. And as I was there, we got so busy. I mean, we had like a 200-person wait list, and there were multiple providers, and the demand was huge. And then I moved to Easton. I was living in Boston before, and there was no one in the area that did vision therapy. So there used to be someone in Canton, but she retired. So the demand has been hard. So we decided to open up Optocize inside of Bay Eye Center, since I had some space I could use, and just get started. And it's been great. We've been open since July 2023.
Oh, really?
We're very new.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
That's so cool.
It's been great, and we're nice and busy, which is awesome.
Yeah, I bet you are. Seriously, that's amazing. Oh, wow. I can't wait to see it in action. Oh boy. So you lived in Boston and you moved to Easton and decided to open this up here. And so that's amazing. And so what typically, say, well, first of all, what age do you normally treat? I mean, what is the youngest? What's the oldest?
Yeah. So for routine eye exams to start, which I don't technically do at Opticize, but I do it. Actually, I work at Bay Eye Center outside of Opticize doing routine eye exams. I'll see kids as young as 6 months, and I'll see any age, really. Any adult is fine. I personally have the most experience with children. But anything binocular vision related, which can happen in adults, I'll still see them. At Opticize specifically, I'm happy to see any kid, any age. But if I were to think about vision therapy, I don't typically start vision therapy. Personally, I like to start probably after age 5. There's definitely exceptions, and other vision therapy providers will start earlier. Just with my training specifically, that's what I'm most comfortable with. Now, I'll still see 2, 3-year-olds with eye turns kind of for a second opinion. Do they need surgery? Should they think about patching? Should they think about other treatments? And so I can still see them, but I won't typically start vision therapy on them that young.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. And so what is the oldest that you would say?
That I've ever seen?
Yeah, or that you can see, or do you have to be a certain age?
No, you don't have to be a certain age. I'll see all ages. If they're worried about their binocular vision, if they're worried about double vision or eye strain or headaches or blurry vision, or that maybe the kids, maybe they're delayed in their milestones. milestones. Maybe they're not walking
Yeah,
or
yeah,
crawling, and
right,
you have to
right.
wonder, are they just not seeing things correctly with
Yeah,
both eyes?
yeah.
I'll see any age. I think I had a 95-year-old one time.
Did you really?
Yeah, it just depends. If
Wow.
patients have strokes or
Sure.
concussions or
Okay.
some type of health issues, or they've just always had an eye turn they wanted to get rid of if possible.
Yes, right, right.
Then we will see them.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah.
It's good to know because at first I thought it was just pediatrics.
Yeah,
but you
most
went
people
through all the-
do. Most
Yeah.
people do. Now, I would say I see more kids than adults, but I still see multiple adults. I have probably 6 adults in vision therapy right now.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, anywhere
Wow.
from 20s to 60s.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good. So now say I had an eye problem or
Yeah.
or I thought I did. What is my first step? I mean, how
Yes.
often are you open?
Yes, good
And what
question.
days are you open and that
So
kind of thing?
as of right now, we're only open on Wednesdays in the Easton office and Thursdays in our Mansfield office. But
Okay.
starting in June, I'm going to open Tuesdays as well.
Okay.
I'm currently still in Boston part-time. But
Oh, you
I'm
are?
gonna leave,
Okay.
still at the school, still teaching a little bit. But
Oh.
I'm going to leave that day and do more here just because the demand's been so big.
Sure.
And so we're open all day Wednesday, all day Thursday. And then to typically we ask if patients can get a routine eye exam before they come here.
Oh, okay.
Because one, we don't take insurance. And so I want to kind of figure out who's a good candidate before they're really coming to our office.
Yeah,
Doesn't mean
right.
you can't just come in and check if you're a good candidate.
Yeah.
But, I like to kind of have an optometrist or an ophthalmologist check the eye health. Maybe they just need glasses. Sometimes they just need
yeah.
a glasses
Okay.
prescription. And that's
Interesting.
it. They don't need vision therapy.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so I like to rule that out first. And then if they're still having problems, and maybe their glasses feel kind of off or their vision feels off or they still have an eye turn or headaches or something, then I say you can come in. And, our biggest referral source actually is occupational therapists, I would say. They'll send me
therapists,
tons
really?
of kids and they'll notice eye tracking issues or eye teaming issues.
Yeah.
They'll send me referrals, and then other optometrists as well will send me. And some ophthalmologists, some of the pediatric ophthalmologists I work with, they'll send me referrals as well.
Oh, wow. So you've got them coming from different
All
angles.
over. I have people
All
driving
over.
an hour. I have people, actually in
Really?
Boston, we've had people drive even 3 hours.
3
We do
hours?
offer some telehealth sessions for vision therapy.
Oh,
You have to be
how's
the
that?
right. You have to be the right candidate for it.
Yeah,
It's not for
yeah.
everyone. We started doing it when COVID happened
Sure.
in Boston. I just decided I had to keep going with the kids that started, and
Sure.
I shipped a bunch of equipment to their house.
Did you really?
And then I saw them on Zoom.
Really?
So I do offer that here.
Wow.
It's not my favorite option for all patients.
Right,
I sometimes
right.
like to be in person, kind of looking at things and helping them
Yeah.
with things. But for patients that live an hour away,
Yeah.
coming in once a week to see me is a lot. So
That's a lot.
We'll do Zoom sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I never would have thought you could do that.
Yeah, it's new.
That's-
It's very
it's
new.
very
since
new,
COVID.
yeah.
We're still learning.
COVID's done a lot for
It's-
that.
A lot of things have changed. That's for
Yeah.
sure. Yes.
Oh, that is so interesting. Wow. Okay, so then what I do then, is there a phone number that I call?
Yes.
Or is it best to go online?
Both.
and-
So we have a phone number. You can look us up online, www.optocize.com. It's kind of a weird word, optocize.
Optocize,
It's
yeah.
a mix between exercise and optimize and all those things. There's our website.
Yep.
And then we have an email you can reach us at, a phone number you can call us at.
Good.
Or you can, if you have a local eye doctor, ask them what they think. If you think you'd be a good candidate, and they could always refer you over. We have a fax they could submit records to. But it just depends on kind of what the situation is. But you can
Yeah.
always call us and ask if you're not sure, or go to our website. There's lots of information about it. We're going to be posting some testimonials soon from patients too, just to
Ooh,
give you
yeah.
some examples of what we've done.
Yeah, good.
We're still very new. That's why our website
Yeah.
is a little early right now.
Right, right.
But you can get lots of information there, and then you can always call us. Stephanie, who you'll see soon, she answers the phone, and she knows a lot about what we do.
Oh, that's great. That is really good. Huh. Boy. Well, I'm excited to
Thank
see some of this in
you.
action.
I'm excited to show you. It's a little different, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's really fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get going
Let's
and
do
see
it.
it? Okay. Here we go.
All right, so this activity is going to work on strengthening your focusing muscle. So essentially what you're going to do, there's a chart here that's a little smaller,
Oh.
and the same chart is up there.
Mhm.
You're basically going to start by pulling that as close as you possibly can and reading the first line. So pull it as close as you can still see it and read the first line out loud.
OFNPVDTCHE.
And then now look at the distance chart and read the second line once it's perfectly clear. So try to clear it and then read it.
YBAKOEZLRX.
Now third line up close, bring it as close as you can.
ETHWFMBKAP.
So this is working on her focusing muscle. She has to engage her focusing muscle really well to look it up close and then relax it to look far away. And we work on that with each eye, kind of strengthening that. Eventually I'll have you do more often. So switching every 5 letters, every 3 letters, every 1 letter. So this is one exercise.
Wow.
We're going to take those off. We're going to switch to more of a basic one called stick and straw.
Stick and straw.
Stick and straw.
Oh,
So what
okay.
you're going to do, it's not easy. You're going to try really quickly to push it through to get the stick in the straw without any tactile cues, just by using your depth perception, essentially.
Oh, really?
It's not easy.
Wow.
And you can
Oh,
just
you
kind
do
of
the
put it
other way?
in quickly and
Okay.
do a couple that way, and then you're going to do a couple with vertical. Good try. Nice.
Ooh, this one's difficult.
Good. And now
Isn't
do
that
vertical.
interesting?
Do vertical. So some people who have eye teaming issues, we can do it closer, we can do it farther away. It works on their depth perception and using both eyes together. Excellent.
Wow, great.
Another thing we're going to do is the Brock string. So this is kind of when people think of vision therapy, the first thing most people who know about it think of. So I'm going to have you actually stand back there. You're going to hold this with it in between your nose. Make sure your fingers aren't blocking an eye. This is another eye teaming one. So what I'm going to have you do is start by looking at this red bead right here.
Yep.
As you look at the red bead, how many strings do you see around it? It's not a trick question.
Like 2?
In front,
Yes.
how many behind it?
2.
And do they cross right at the red bead, in front or behind?
Right at the
Right.
red bead.
What happens if I cover an eye?
I see 1.
1 string. Good. And then this eye, same thing.
1
So what I want you to pay attention to is each eye sees a string.
Yep.
You should see 2 strings in front, 2 strings behind.
Yep.
If one of those strings disappears, it means one of your eyes is crossing and your brain is ignoring it. What we want to do is now have you jump between a couple beads. You want to always see that X right at the bead. If it's not at the bead, you're not using your eyes together as a team, essentially. So now look at the yellow bead. How many yellow beads do you see?
1,
How many strings in front of it?
2,
As you look at the yellow, how many reds do you see?
2,
2. And if I cover an eye, what do you see?
1.
Only 1. So that's giving you feedback. So now look at the red bead. I'm slowly going to bring the bead closer. And you still see 1 red bead?
Yep.
You still see all the strings?
Yep.
Now jump to the yellow. Everything's still there?
Yep.
Good. I'm going to bring it closer. Jump to the red. Good. Still got it? Or was that a
Yep.
little harder? Okay.
Yep.
And then look at the yellow.
Got it.
And we slowly push the beads farther away and change the techniques to work on her eye teaming at different distances.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So does it actually exercise the eye
Literally
muscles?
exercising your muscles in your eye. There's
Really?
different muscles that help you converge both eyes and
Yep.
diverge both eyes. And then there's your focusing muscle inside your eye that helps you clear things up close. So it's
Really?
2 different muscles that we work on. If we do 2 eyes open versus 1, we're working on different things.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Because I really think of my eyes as muscles.
Yep.
We go to the gym, we work out our arms, our legs,
Yep.
our abs,
Yep.
but the eyes.
The eyes have
right?
muscles. And it's
Isn't
also
that
kind of
something?
teaching your brain what it's perceiving as it sees things.
Okay.
Because if you have an eye that, let's say, drifts outwards, you have
Yeah.
2 options. Your brain can see double, right? You see
Yeah,
2
yeah, yeah.
images,
Yeah.
or your brain can ignore this eye, turn it off, and you basically have no depth perception because you're
Mhm.
only looking at things with 1 eye instead of 2.
Okay.
So that affects sports, that affects performance
Sure.
in school, it affects the way you kind of go through your environment.
Wow.
So this is one of the things we'll do, very basic step that we
Mhm,
start with
mhm.
to kind of get people to use both eyes together.
That's great.
Yeah. Okay, the next thing I want to do is this. So you're going to sit down in this chair. This is another eye teaming exercise, and you're going to put on these Polaroid glasses. And this is working on your depth perception a little bit. So I want you to focus on this one here. Okay, do you see a ring?
Yep.
I'm going to move it a little bit. Comparing the top to the bottom, does one of them look smaller than the other? Or do you see 2 rings on one of them?
This one's smaller.
This
the
one's
bottom.
smaller. Can you tell if one of them's coming closer to you in space? Like, could you touch it in space?
The top one.
The top one. Now, I want you to slowly shake your head side to side. Very slowly. Does one of them look like it's moving in the same direction as your head?
Yep.
Which one?
The top one.
Good. Does one of them look like it's a little bigger?
The top one.
The top one. Now, jump. Can you still see 1 ring when you jump down here?
Yep.
And how about when you jump up here?
I see 2 rings.
You can see 2 rings. So we went a little too far. So I'm getting her to fuse the images with each eye. We're going back and forth between converging and diverging, and she's seeing depth cues. She's seeing something's coming closer to her, something's going further away. The depth cues really help your brain kind of want to use both eyes together. It gives you feedback for the purpose of it.
Yeah.
So this is usually really fun for a lot of people. A lot of athletes actually will do activities like this to work on their depth perception for sports.
Wow.
This is called a vectogram.
Pictogram.
Yes. The next thing I want to do, actually, we're going to use that chart over there, if that's okay. So this is going to really test you.
Oh, look at
so
that.
you're going to put these glasses over your glasses.
Wow.
And you're going to be looking at this chart.
Interesting.
And the reason I'm using this chart is each eye sees a different letter. And so if you're turning an eye off, you're not going to be able to see certain letters or read the chart. So what you're going to be doing to start is you're just going to walk forward and back while reading all the letters. And then I'm eventually going to add more distractions.
Okay. So walking forward and back.
Yep.
Okay.
Let me just grab the next one.
D P X H C B Y A T U A G A U
Is
E
anything
L S
disappearing?
O I
You can see everything.
O C R 9 E U.
Now, as you do this, I'm going to throw things at you from the side.
Oh, great.
If it's yellow, you have to catch it. If it's blue, you have to dodge it. Okay, but you're looking straight ahead reading and you're seeing me on your side vision.
Okay.
Okay, so start walking and keep going.
D P X H C
Good.
B Y A T U A G A E L C S O I
Good.
O C. Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay.
R 9 E U K T I E D B.
Good. All right, you can stop. Now, sometimes what we do as a harder level is we put them on a balance board and they have to walk forward and back. We put flippers, prism flippers, make them see double on purpose, shift where things are in space, etc. We're slowly getting into some of the harder activities. She has never actually done vision therapy, so I'm not doing too many difficult things today.
Okay.
So
You're doing great.
Oh, she's doing amazing. So the next thing we're going to do, this is more of a basic level for younger kids. It's pretty big letters, but essentially this is working on tracking and working on her eye-hand coordination and her tracking on top of that. So what you're going to do is you're going to try to use one finger if you can, and with good rhythm, try to hit a letter and say the letter or number out loud as you hit it.
Okay.
And we start with just this. We eventually put her on a balance board. We add special glasses to make it harder, etc. Go ahead.
1 C. Oops.
Try to do it. It's hard.
N
Get some rhythm. Good.
U 1 E 1.
And now I won't make you do this one if you don't want me to, but we do a balance board. I'm just gonna grab this.
Oh, it's
That's okay. Perfect.
oh boy, look at that. With a balance
next
board.
step
Oh.
is on the balance
Yo.
board. N
What?
L I 1 K.
Wow.
And we can make them smaller. We have red-green ones that you can wear with red-green glasses.
Oh, yeah?
Depending on what the kid's diagnosis is, we'll tweak the exercise.
Now tell
for
me
it.
why the balancing. Why
It's
is
a good
that?
question. And so when you teach people how to do something with your eyes, you don't want it to be a lot of effort to have to do it. So if you think about a kid or even an adult in a work environment or in a classroom, if they're spending a lot of energy trying to focus on a visual activity, they have less energy to really actually do the work, right? Comprehend what they're reading or pay attention to math problems, pay attention to what's going on in their environment.
Okay.
Most people are in busy environments. You're in a classroom that's really busy.
Yep.
You're in a work environment with lots of people around you.
Yeah,
And so when you force your body to be distracted or your brain to be distracted by other things, it makes it harder to pay attention to these things. So the idea is if I can make this really difficult in here, then they could go do that eye thing with tons of distractions without any issues. So we're trying to just make it harder and harder.
Yeah.
One example would be for athletes, for example. A lot of professional athletes work with vision therapists to try to improve their performance, their vision enhancement,
Sure.
or enhance their vision performance is a better way to say it.
Okay.
There's flicker glasses that, let's say, baseball players can use. And what they do is they dim the vision intermittently as someone's pitching to them and they have to hit the ball. What that does is it makes it harder for them to see as the ball's coming. Then when they take their glasses off, it's like time is slowed down. If they can do it while taking away some of their vision, they play much better. So it's a similar idea where if you make it really, really hard visually for them, then when they're actually in their regular environment doing something easier, it feels like nothing.
Sure.
So it's much easier and more automatic. It's called automaticity, working on how automatic it is for their brain.
This is fabulous. This information is amazing.
Most people don't know about it, and not everyone needs it. Not everyone needs it.
Okay.
But the certain patients, all these issues, which we'll go through some diagnoses later, but
Yeah.
can cause a lot of eye strain, a lot of headaches. There's
Sure.
tons of kids some kids do have dyslexia, but some kids are actually, they think they have dyslexia just because they see double a lot when they're reading, or they're not tracking as well,
Yeah.
when really it's actually their eyes causing it. Now, you can definitely still have dyslexia and eye problems too. It's not like I can cure dyslexia. I cannot do that.
Okay.
But because your eyes can make it so much harder for you to do reading sometimes or do activities, these exercises can make a huge difference in kids and adults, not just kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's fun.
This is amazing.
So those are just some we have 50, 60, 70 different vision therapy techniques we'll do.
Oh, really?
We cater the different activities depending on the diagnosis. I have a 5-year-old. I also have a 60-year-old.
Oh, I was gonna
Different
ask that.
activities
Okay.
depending on the age, depending on what their
Oh.
diagnosis is, depending
Really?
on how long I think the program is going to be for them.
Okay.
These are just some of the kind of main ones we'll start with a lot of patients that are a little bit easier.
Yeah, how long does a typical therapy last? I mean,
Yeah.
so when you go, because when you have regular physical therapy,
Yeah.
it's sometimes, they do 12 weeks or
Yeah.
6 weeks. Do you determine that upon,
The initial
meeting the
diagnosis.
person?
So patients will come in for an initial binocular vision consultation, which I'll show you a couple techniques in a little bit.
Okay.
That initial consultation is an hour long. We typically will do it after they've had a routine eye exam. So I know basic eye health is normal, but if I have to do some of those things, I can.
Yeah.
And then depending on the diagnosis, we kind of determine how many sessions they need. The
Yeah.
majority of vision therapy programs need about 14 sessions. That's based on a
Okay.
research paper that came out on what's called convergence insufficiency, which is a main diagnosis. That's where people have trouble converging their eyes towards their nose. And so I typically recommend about 14, but I have had patients that have lots of different diagnoses and it's harder for them to do some of these activities. So sometimes I say you might need 2 rounds of 14 sessions, or you might need somewhere between 14 and 20. I try to estimate it before we start.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have had some patients finish in like 10. A lot of it is they have to practice home exercises as well.
I was just going to ask that. Do they have homework they have to do?
So I tell patients it's PT for your eyes, essentially.
Yeah,
I tell patients that just like if you go to the gym once a week, your muscles don't get strong. If you go 4 times a week, they get stronger. And so patients do have to practice these activities. 4 times a week is typically recommended. It's never more than like 10 to 15 minutes a day that I give them. But I teach them techniques. They go home and practice them 3 to 5, I would say, but 4 is the most common times a week. The ones that practice more typically finish faster. The ones that practice less typically take a little longer to finish. And then once we finish vision therapy, I put them on what's called maintenance exercises, where I give them a fraction of what they did with me. They practice, the research suggests 15 minutes total a week for about 3 more months, just at home, not coming in to see me anymore. And then I see them 3 months later to make sure they're still doing well. And then I slowly wean them off.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a nice little protocol that we follow.
That's nice. And do you find that it helps in the long term, or is this something that it all depends on the diagnosis? Right? I mean, does it help someone, for you've cured them? Do you ever cure someone with a problem, or is it more of a you kind of have to stay with it?
Most patients, they're cured. Most patients.
Really?
I have done probably thousands of sessions at this point, thousands of cases at this point. I could count on one hand how many people regressed, and most of them were ones that never did the maintenance that I gave them. Most of them, maybe 2 of them happened to regress a little bit more. But if they regress, it's usually very easy to just give them something at home to just pick up a little bit more, and then they can get back on track. And the research study that was specifically on convergence insufficiency, that showed that if people follow that 15 minutes per week for 3 to 6 months, they're very unlikely to regress. It's technically possible. I had one girl recently who was getting terrible headaches all day long, starting at 9 a.m. for a year, all because her focusing muscle was not working and her eye teaming was really poor. Her vision was super blurry. She didn't need glasses. She was 20/20 in each eye. We did vision therapy and she hasn't gotten a single headache. Her headaches are gone. And so this is someone who, for her, she was a great student, but for her, this was life-changing because having to do schoolwork when you have a terrible headache all day, you can't see in the middle of the classroom because it's blurry when it's not due to glasses, that for her was life-changing. I have another patient who was actually in his 50s who had a lazy eye his whole life. And some lazy eyes I can't treat, some I can. It depends on the diagnosis and the situation. But his eye was always out and he hated how it looked. Cosmetically, it was just so, he always felt so embarrassed. There's research studies that show psychosocial consequences with it. And we got him to bring his eye in and now his eyes are straight. And he said it was also life-changing for him.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. So some patients, not on everyone. I always say that consultation is very important to know who's a good candidate and who's not. But he happened to be a great candidate and we did sessions and now his eyes are straight.
And how can you tell if he's a good candidate or not?
Great question. So the consult, I do a lot of things looking at eye teaming, eye tracking, and eye focusing. Some of them I'll show on Stephanie. And I can tell basically if I were to physically align their eyes, surgery obviously could move muscles to be straight. I'm not doing surgery. I can use prism lenses to shift where the image is if the eye is out or in, to see if the brain then can click the two eyes together. Can the brain process binocularity? Can the brain process the use of the two eyes and develop depth perception if I do certain techniques? And that's what I look for. If the brain has no way of processing it, it doesn't mean they're not a good candidate, but they're less likely to be a good candidate. I need to make sure the brain has a way of doing it.
Interesting.
Because if I'm going to teach them to bring their eyes straight, the brain needs to want to keep the eyes straight.
Oh, yeah.
If the vision is really, really blurry in this eye all the time, sometimes the eye will just naturally drift out and the brain won't really want to use that eye. So it depends on the situation. That's why we check. That's why my consult is an hour long. I'm doing a lot of tests.
Oh, it's an hour long.
Yes.
Wow.
Just with me for an hour. A lot of time with me.
But that's really good because then you know it's thorough. Then
yes.
You know
and I am very conservative personally. There's definitely some people that can probably do better things than I can and that would probably treat more things than I do. I'm conservative because it's a lot of time and a lot of energy on the patient's part. And I really need to make sure I know how to treat it. If I feel like I'm not 100% positive, I don't always recommend it. But if I'm pretty confident, I'll tell them this will work for you and you should try it.
And I'd much rather go to a doctor who tells me, you know, I'm conservative and I'm going to let you know that what I do might not be good for you. It may not work. I'd rather have that because then I trust you more.
I hope that's the goal.
No, that's
and I will
great.
say in vision therapy, you know, we're still learning a lot. There hasn't been a ton of research on it. We had one really big research study called the Convergence Insufficiency Treatment Trial, which compared to controls and other treatments, office-based vision therapy, and it showed to work the best out of everything. There are other diagnoses we don't have studies on yet. It's hard to do the research studies because it's a lot of time commitment. It's a lot of energy and money, and so there haven't been a ton of studies on it. So some people are skeptical of it, which is fair.
Of course.
So that's where we try to be honest if we think it will work or not.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Can I show some of the techniques to diagnose? Is that
I think that'd be awesome.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I want to see everything.
Hello, welcome to Easton News. I'm Abby Kitchenham.
And I'm Jack Ryan, and together we bring you everything you need to know about Easton, including politics.
The annual town election is scheduled for Saturday, April 22nd, 2023.
Community events.
Be Inspired, Counseling Presents, a parent and child coping workshop centered around a new year and new beginnings.
And sports.
Pressure builds diamonds, so we live by that every day of practice, going into every game.
With APCSM guest segment Pet of the Week.
Hi, I'm Katie with the Animal Protection Center, and today we have a little Iris.
With help from special correspondent Wyatt Fain. Join us
for Easton News.
Playing 6 o'clock Friday, Saturday, and Sundays.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of For the Love of Words.
After a 3-year hiatus, join me, John Holgerson, and
Priscilla Almquist Olson,
as we interview poets and musicians.
Could you give the audience a little summary of your background as a child?
When I turned 7 or so, we were car bombed. That stuck out.
And have them share their love of words.
Sometimes I wonder, do you ever think of me?
A thin broth of moonlight caught in the trees spreads across the garden brush, so one side of every stick shimmers while the other sides melt into one another, a mass grave of cherry, pear, and pine.
For the Love of Words at 7 p.m. on Thursdays.
Hi there, I'm Gail Devins, and join me as we discover all the businesses that made Easton great. This is a wonderful, wonderful place. I cannot wait. I want to do it. I want to go there. I am definitely coming back, and I know you will too, because I'm telling you something. It is absolutely amazing in here. What a wonderful way to discover Easton. It's right here in Easton. Showing at noon on Mondays, 2 p.m. on Tuesdays, and 11 a.m. on Fridays, only on ECAT.
So we're in the exam room. I'm going to demonstrate some techniques that I use to diagnose conditions in the initial consult to see if you're a good candidate for vision therapy or not.
Okay.
So it's a little different than a typical eye exam. Obviously, I do have all the equipment for a typical eye exam, but I have some extra special toys that not all eye doctors will have at their visit. So one of the things I do that's one of the most important things is I look at, does she have an eye turn? Does she use her two eyes together? That's called a cover test. So as she looks at this target, I basically see how her eyes are aligned. You can just look at that letter for me, just to see if both eyes are straight. She does not have an eye turn. Let me just check up close as well. Can you hold this for me? Can you see the letter inside that? Keep watching it, seeing if there's an eye turn. And then what I do, you're gonna watch this H with your eyes. Tell me if it gets blurry or ever becomes double. This is called it's blurry, a near point of convergence. It's looking at her focusing muscles and her ability to converge her eyes towards her nose. So she's actually a little more receded, a little more further back than I would love for her age. Sorry if I shouldn't have said that.
She's always told me that.
I knew that.
Oh, okay. So it's not shocking.
Yeah, no.
You're not devastated. Okay.
So this is one of the tests I was telling you about, how to tell if they're using both eyes, if the brain is kind of able to put two eyes together. So this is called the Worth 4-dot test. So what I can do when I'm actually turn the lights down, if that's okay. So when I cover this eye, how many circles do you see?
I see 3.
What color?
Red, green.
And how many now?
3.
What color?
Green.
How many do you see now?
2.
2. And what color?
Red.
Good. So now both eyes open. How many circles do you see?
4.
4. If you blink, does it ever change?
No.
No. So what we do is there's 4 lights here. If you just look out of the right eye, you only see 2 reds. If you just look out of the green, you only see 3 green. If both eyes are open and you're using both eyes together, you'll see 4. This will be kind of a mix of red and green. If you have an eye turn, you could see double, where you see 5 circles. Or if you have an eye turn and your brain's ignoring it, you could see only 2 or only 3. And so we test that up close. We test it far away. Sometimes I'll kind of put prism on to see how things change. This is a good idea to see, can the brain kind of do what's called flat fusion of the 2 eyes? Can it take an image from each eye and put it together into one? So this is a nice test to do. Other things we'll test is I'm going to turn the lights back on. If she can easily converge and diverge her eyes well. So as she looks at that target, tell me if it becomes double or blurry. I'm making it harder for her. It's already double.
Yeah.
Can you make it 1?
Yep.
Good. So she broke here. What that means is that was forcing her to try to diverge her eyes easily. Most people will actually break closer to here. So hers was a little fragile. It could cause her to eventually get some eye strain and double vision in the future. We'll do the same thing to make her converge. Can you see?
It's double.
It's double. Okay. Tell me what's back to 1.
I can force it back to 1.
That's hard. Is that easier? Okay. So same thing. She was double a lot earlier. Most patients will be double closer to down here.
Really?
So she has a little more trouble easily making that shift between convergence and divergence. Think about your daily life. You're looking off down the hall. You're looking at your book. You're looking at your computer. Being able to make that shift should be automatic and easy. And so she sees double pretty quickly with this. Doesn't mean I would definitely do vision therapy on her, but it's just demonstrating things we'll look for. Another thing we'll do is a tracking test. So I'm going to have you stand up if you don't mind. So I'm going to stand right here if that's okay. When I tell you, you're going to look at the tip of the red and the tip of the green, only when I tell you. Are you ready? So red, green, green, red, red, green, green, red. So what I was looking for is she perfectly getting her eyes to the target, called a saccade, jumping between 2 stationary targets. And does she move her head or her body? She had teeny little head movements, very normal for your age. And she was able to accurately get her eyes there. Then I also do a pursuit where I see, can she easily follow a target without moving her head or moving her body? We don't typically tell the patients not to move their head or body, just to see what they do. And she does great with that. Her pursuits are really good.
All right.
Now the next thing I'm going to look at is one of the things with her focusing muscle. So this is where I'm basically going to have her read something up close. Typically when you're looking up close, you're supposed to engage your focusing muscle. It's supposed to clear things for you. That muscle is the reason why people in their 40s, 50s, 60s might need reading glasses, because it slows down. She is not at that age, so she shouldn't need reading glasses. So what I'm looking at is I'm going to have her read these letters, and I'm going to see how her focusing muscle is working. Is it engaging appropriately, or is it not? So read those letters for me.
Important, installed, customary, rebellion, malicious, spectacular, abundant, yearning.
She's focusing normally. Same thing.
Infected, installed, dungeon, inventory, medicine.
Same thing. She's focusing normally.
Oh.
Another test we'll sometimes do. This is a tracking test. This is called the developmental eye movement test. I have patients read these numbers from top to bottom as fast as they can, but as accurately as they can.
Okay.
That's test A. Test B, same thing. It's a similar idea. Generally easy to track. It's more what's called automaticity or visual processing, saying things out loud, essentially.
Okay.
That's what we're timing them. The third test is a little harder. This is more difficult to track, and they have to read it from left to right like they're reading a book. No finger, just their eyes.
Oh,
and what we do is we compare how quickly can they read this compared to something
Up and down.
like the up and down.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what that tells me is, if this is super easy, it's not... we know she can easily say numbers out loud. She doesn't have any visual processing issue, most likely. There are other ways we can test for that. If this is much harder, it tells me it's likely a tracking issue. If this is just as difficult as this, she likely also has a visual processing issue where she has trouble saying numbers out loud, because this, which is obviously more convoluted, is just as hard as this. So there's different ways that would tell us if there is a tracking issue or what's called an automaticity issue, a visual processing issue. There's, let's see, what else did I want to show you? We also check for depth perception. It's one of the most important things we'll check.
Oh, really?
So what I like to do, I do a forced choice depth perception one. As you can see, for young kids, it's my favorite. You can't see anything in these without glasses on. What I'm going to have her do is tell me which one of these has a smiley face on it. Good, and it's going to be popping out at her 3D.
Isn't that great?
Then I can slowly make it harder. It gets harder and harder to see as we go. Which one now? Good. And if she can get it, she has really, really good depth perception. You got it. Nice job.
Wow.
There's other tests that you might see at like vision screenings, like this one. This one is a little easier to tell without glasses on, without the Polaroid glasses. So the depth perception doesn't have to be as good to complete something like this. This is fine to use, but this is harder. So I like to tell, do they really have true depth perception, which tells me, you know, there's probably not an eye teaming issue as much if they have really good depth perception. So those are kind of, there's lots of different tests that we go through in an hour. I'll look at I'll double check the glasses prescription. Sometimes in kids, their focusing muscle works really, really hard. And so sometimes their glasses prescription can actually be over-prescribed because their focusing muscle can trick you into thinking they have a stronger prescription than they do. So I'll double check that. I'll double check the health as well. And then I'll, you know, make sure the visual acuity is good. I'll check a bunch of other tests to kind of check their eye teaming and their focusing and things like that. We use lots of flippers and things like that. And then I also check, does she have an eye turn in different positions of gaze? So I'll move her head, I'll tilt her head, and I'll check her eye muscles as going to the side, going up and down to make sure there's no overactions, underactions, or restrictions of her muscles. So a lot of fun things.
So you follow every little, you're checking everything.
I'm checking everything. I am very thorough.
That's good.
But that's why we give it an hour. I want to make sure if you're going to go through 14 weeks of a lot of treatment, I want to make sure it's going to work. And sometimes I have to send patients for surgery instead, which I don't do surgery. Really? If someone has a really large eye turn, whether it's up, out, in, a lot of times I work with pediatric ophthalmology a lot. I'll send patients to them for surgery. Sometimes I'll do vision therapy after surgery. If they made it smaller, but it's still a little bit there, I'll work on that. But if it's a really large angle eye turn, sometimes I will recommend surgery instead. Other times, sometimes we'll prescribe glasses with prism in them. If someone has a slight eye turn or a slight misalignment of their eyes, prism can be really helpful too. And sometimes I won't do vision therapy if I'm just giving prism. Sometimes I'll do vision therapy and give prism. It depends on what the diagnosis is.
Now, when you say prism, what exactly
Great
is that?
question. Can I show you?
Yeah.
So these are prism lenses. This is a very large prism. You can have prism from only one prism diopter, which is very, very thin. It just shifts the image the tiniest bit.
Oh, really?
But if I cover one of your eyes and you just look at maybe look at that letter, you can
Yeah.
see I'm going to shift the image all the way to the side. It
Wow.
shifts the image a ton. Now, this is a lot. This is 40 prism diopters.
Yeah.
A 40
Okay.
prism diopter eye turn, you would see the eye would be all the way out here. It'd be very obvious to a lay observer. Now,
Okay.
someone with a smaller eye turn, maybe only a 6 prism diopter
Yeah.
turn, most non-optometrists or ophthalmologists won't really notice that. It's harder
Okay.
for people to see it. So now when you look at that image, it went away. Hold on. When you look at that image, it's not going to move nearly as much.
No,
Just
no,
a
no,
little.
yeah,
Now, what the
exactly.
prism does, if your eye is constantly out, for example, the prism doesn't move your eye straight. It moves the image to where your eye is. So it shifts the image so you can
really?
see the same image with both eyes as opposed to
that
making you see
interesting?
double. Yeah.
Isn't that
It's
interesting?
very cool.
And that goes right in the glasses.
They
like
would
in the
look like
prescription.
those. You wouldn't even
You wouldn't even
notice.
know?
You
Really?
wouldn't even notice. Sometimes the glasses can be a little more expensive if they have prism, just making the
Sure.
lenses. We
Yeah.
also have a sticker prism you can add on the lenses. They're a little more visible. I don't know if you ever remember Hillary Clinton once had this sticker on her glasses because she had had a
Yeah.
concussion and she developed a slight eye turn. And they put the prism
Oh.
to align her eyes, at
Isn't
least
that
from what I read in the
interesting?
news. This is what I don't
Yeah,
speak
yeah.
to them personally. But she wore that sticker just to align her eyes temporarily until it recovered.
Okay, so when you put a prism in,
Yeah.
is it temporary or do
It's a
some
good
people
question.
use it all the time?
Sometimes it's temporary, sometimes it's forever. It really depends
Really?
on what the diagnosis is.
Right.
If I've had patients maybe who had a concussion, sometimes their brain is still recovering, and so
Yeah.
I'll do temporary prism, whether it's a sticker or in their glasses,
Okay.
or I'll do prism until we can do vision therapy to kind of train their eyes to do it on their own. The thing about
Okay.
prism is it's a little bit more of a Band-Aid. It doesn't fix the fact that there's an eye turn.
Oh,
It
okay.
moves the image to the turned eye so the patient doesn't see double anymore.
Okay.
Vision
All right.
therapy, if your eye is out, we teach you to bring your eye in. So you won't have to wear prism because you're straightening your eyes on your own. But
Okay.
not all patients are candidates for vision therapy. So sometimes if someone has a vertical eye turn, a lot of the times prism is the better way to treat it. I have trouble training a vertical eye turn personally. I'm sure some people can.
Yeah.
I personally don't see as much success if someone has a vertical turn doing vision therapy.
Yeah, I've never even known there was a vertical turn.
Yes. It's more common than you think. It's
Really?
I mean I see a lot of it, but that's because that's what I do.
Yeah.
But it's more common than you would think. Horizontal turns are definitely more common than vertical, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of different things we can do.
That's amazing. Now, do you ever have a patient come in because they had a fall or a concussion and
Stroke
therefore
or
they
a
can't
concussion, yeah.
stroke too?
Mm-hmm. Oh yes, strokes
Wow.
can cause your cranial nerves to not work properly. Your
Really?
cranial nerves are connected to your eye muscles. They help your
Sure.
eyes go out, in, up, and
Yeah,
down.
yeah.
And so if you have a cranial nerve 4 palsy, for example, that
Hmm.
that messes with the muscle that brings your eye down and in, so they might have a vertical turn. Even a cranial nerve 6 palsy, you can get that sometimes in whether it's strokes or patients with diabetes, patients with high blood pressure.
Oh,
That affects
really?
their ability to bring their eye outwards. So they're going to actually have an eye turn in because the muscle pulling it in is very strong compared to
Yep.
the muscle going out.
Okay,
So
yeah.
they'll see double because one of the eyes is like this. So we'll give them prism temporarily as they're recovering. Some people will also patch an eye, but a lot of us like to give prism to keep them binocular as much as we can.
Yeah.
So stroke patients, concussion patients, we see a lot of athletes who had concussions.
Sure.
The most common thing we'll see after a concussion, the most common finding is a receded near point of convergence where I was bringing that target closer to her.
Yeah.
Some people will see double a lot earlier, which
Okay.
can cause a lot of eye strain, a lot of discomfort, a lot of blurry vision.
Yeah.
But that's
Yeah.
very common post-concussion.
Oh. Now, do you ever find that, I mean, there are other symptoms? Do some people experience vertigo because of their eyes?
I've seen a lot of patients get vertigo. Now, I can
Really?
never say 100% if it's from their eyes.
Oh,
There
okay.
was one study that came out of Children's Hospital where they looked at patients with vestibular disorders and binocular vision disorders after
Yeah.
concussion.
Uh-huh.
And a lot of those patients were actually, most of them had both. Vestibular
Really?
disorders,
Yeah.
PPPD, and binocular vision disorders.
Mm.
I've had some patients, typically my patients with a slight eye turn in that is not visible to other people.
Mm.
A lot of them tell me they get a lot of vertigo. And as
Mm.
I train them to straighten their eyes, a lot of that vertigo goes away. And that's
Really?
not proven in literature, so please take this
Okay,
with a grain
right,
of
right.
salt. We don't have
Yeah.
studies showing that, but personally from my
You've
patients
seen
with
it.
that, I've seen it all the time. I've had
Okay.
patients with motion sickness. They can't ride in trains because
Right, so
it
that's
bothers
because of
them
their
so much.
eyes?
Not always,
Not
but
always,
it
but
can be.
sometimes,
It can
yeah.
be. And I had one patient,
Wow.
if I put her on a bouncy ball,
Yeah.
she would want to throw up. She couldn't do it.
Wow.
By the end of vision therapy, I straightened her eyes. She was bouncing on balls. She was looking around.
Really?
She doesn't get motion sickness
Wow.
anymore. But it depends on
Wow.
if they don't have an eye issue, then it's not the eye.
Then it's not the
causing
eye,
that.
and it could be
So
something else,
anytime
yeah.
someone does get really bad vertigo or really bad motion sickness, we still
Yeah.
recommend people check their ears because a lot of times it is from your ears.
Yes.
And you see an ENT or a vestibular specialist, but sometimes it can be your eyes and not
Isn't that
something
something?
you can still be be perfectly 20/20 in each eye. So
Yeah.
you'll pass your eye exam or your eye screening, but you still could have these binocular vision disorders. So that's where I tell people, you know, we can always check you. And if you're not sure, happy to find out if it could be your eyes. And I'll be honest, if I don't think it is your eyes.
Yeah. Good.
And I send for vestibular specialists all the time. I send for evals just to make sure, you know, is it just the eyes or is it their ears too? And are there PT maneuvers they could be doing to help with that? So we co-manage a lot. It's OTs, PTs, vestibular specialists. A lot of those people we co-manage with a lot. And chiropractors too.
Chiropractors too, really?
I've seen a lot of people, there's some eye turns that cause a head tilt long term because of the way your muscles are. And we can give Prism to straighten your eyes, but most people will go most of their life with this little head tilt.
Yeah,
and so they get neck issues and they'll end up seeing a chiropractor for their neck issues.
Yeah.
So that's where I probably manage with them the most, that type of condition.
Tilt.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting how because you think, when I was thinking about this, I thought, oh, you know, it's just that, but you're actually in touch with other physicians and other.
I am very much into co-management because I can't fix everything.
Right. Well, that's good.
And it's
you're
figuring
honest.
out if patients are symptomatic, what's going to be their fix for them. And vision therapy is time consuming and expensive. And, you know, I want to make sure if we're going to do it, it's going to actually fix their symptoms.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. That's good.
There's a storm.
Join me, Priscilla Almquist-Olsen, to explore the town of Easton and its interesting, engaging, ordinary, and extraordinary people, and meet a smorgasbord of guests, including artists, authors, musicians, business owners, community organizations, clergy, local leaders, etc., etc., etc. Community Forum at 3 p.m. on Thursdays and 1:30 p.m. on Saturdays. See you then.
Looking at these kids' glasses, they're so cute. Boy, oh boy. Well, I'll tell you, thank you so much.
you.
That was so informative. I have people in my mind right now that I want to refer to you. I really do.
I'm excited. I mean, there's a lot of things we can do. And one thing I just want to emphasize is, you know, even if your routine eye exam is totally normal and you just feel like you're getting really bad headaches or your vision's been blurry, your vision just feels off or something feels off, you know, yes, it could be migraines or it could not be migraines. Sometimes it is binocular vision issues, and not all optometrists will check for these specific things because it's a lot of extra tests that some people just don't have training in. That's fine.
Right.
But if you feel like something's off or you feel like you just want to make sure there's nothing else, come and see us, and we're always happy to double check for you. And I'll be very honest if I think I can treat it.
Oh no, that is really good, because then you walk out of here knowing for sure, okay, this isn't for me, or boy, this might work. So
you know, even if your kid is struggling in school, you feel like they're on an IEP, they have ADHD, they have dyslexia, and they're just not doing well in school, just double check that their eyes are fine. You know, I mean, if they can't see something really well, it's going to be hard for them to process visual information and do well in school. So we always just want to make sure, even if you're working and you're having trouble being on Zoom all day long on your computer, you know, it's something we can check for.
That's great, because I think we get so used to something wrong with, you know, our vision or something that we figure everybody's
well,
like
I think
that,
most people don't know what's abnormal. If you have had headaches your whole life, to you, everyone has that. So how would you know that you should be checked? Kids especially, though, I would say, especially when I have one eye that's not working properly, they have no idea that that's abnormal, because that's their normal. They might say, I see fine, Mom. I can see everything across the hall. But they still might not be using their eyes appropriately, or at least very efficiently. And that can impact their development and their school and how much they enjoy school.
Yeah,
and like I said,
sure.
adults too, you might think, oh, I had one of my students the other day who said, oh, I've been getting headaches for a while at the end of studying, but that's normal. Doesn't everyone get headaches at the end of the day? And I said, technically not. I mean, if you're doing 10 hours in a row without a break, sure, that's expected. But if you're getting a pretty bad headache after like an hour, that's not as normal. And then we did check her, and she had a lot of eye teaming issues and eye focusing, and we did vision therapy. We started vision therapy on her. Wow. Yeah. So don't rule it out, but not everyone needs it. And I can't emphasize that enough, but sometimes it can really make a difference whether you're a kid or an adult.
Yeah. That's very good advice. Thank you. Wow. That's great. Boy, well, thank you so much again.
This was
I've
fun.
learned so much.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Thank you. Well, until next time, I will see you on Discover Easton.